Then numbers of fish in action, there's always a shot of a larger fish. This lady's holding a fish right here we caught last winter. We were in just a melee of 15 to 18-inch lake trout, nothing big. And then all of a sudden they quit biting. They just left. The whole screen went empty. And I was like, guys, be careful. This is where we can get a large one. And then that one bit, and a couple minutes later, she had it up on the ice. So that was a good fish. And usually in our lakes here, when they're that fat, there's a lot of food for them. And that one was definitely eating lake trout. And so, you know, it's just like everything else. So you say there's a chance, and there definitely is. You know, when we're going out ice fishing, I always got to talk about clothes, because if you get cold, it's just absolutely miserable out there. Don't forget your merino wool. Leave your cotton at home. Bring extra socks for the kids. And if you got a half-hour drive or more to get to the lake, change your socks when you get to the lake. Just have your tennis shoes and your socks on. When you're getting out of your car, change your socks. Your feet have been under that heater. It makes a big difference, especially if you got kids. When you're dealing with your gloves, I always keep an extra pair inside my coat. I can change them in and out all day long. I'm a clam guy. Their suits are about as good as you get. The ice armor is awesome. Layer. Use rubber bottom boots. If you're going out for a couple days in a row, or you're bringing your camper up, make sure you take the liners out of your boots every night. That to me is a big deal. So it'll keep your feet dry the next day. So keep that in mind. I'm probably going to blow through this thing pretty quick, but that's what we have questions for. You know, augers, the gear, them electric drill augers, they're coming in. They're very popular anymore. A lot of people are really like them. Highly mobile. Haven't seen any problems with them. I'm a Jiffy guy. Gas augers, you know, they just go. Hand augers, you know, get through the ice any way you can. Spud bars will work, especially early season. Be checking that ice as you go. Rods and reels, I am not a wire indicator fan, but I am, if we're using bait or using any dead bait, dead sticking, bobbers are really important to me. I don't have a diagram of this, but if you get a round bobber, you find your bait wherever you want it in the water column on the bottom suspended. You make a loop in that line right at the water's edge and hook the bobber over the loop. And then you can set it down and keep your bait where you want it. And when that bobber barely twitches, you set the hook and the bobber flies off. I wish I had a diagram of that, but I didn't think about doing that. Something to me that's real important is matching your rods to the lure weight. My ice rods, I use a Dave Genn split grip rods, the 36-inch medium heavy and the 40-inch heavy. Now, the 40-inch heavy is for all my lead heads that are 3/4 and 1 ounce. And then anything a 1/2 ounce and lighter goes on that 36-inch medium heavy. If you match it right, you can flip and you can twist and you can do all kinds of stuff with your jig. You'll have total control of it, which gets you more bites. You control that jig, you'll really control you'll control the amount of bites you get. If you have too much, if your rod's too soft, loading up too much, it'll cost you bites at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to line, I'm a fluorocarbon fan, 100% trilene. I am not a fan of the super lines fishing out of huts. They freeze up, they collect water, they just become a problem I don't like to deal with. So I'm all about the fluorocarbon. I want a smooth fall. I don't care for mono. There's too much stretch in it, but fluorocarbon seems to be real good for me. Then weight worth of jig action. When we're talking about that, if you go lighter, you're going to get more action on your jig. And if you use something like a tube jig, you put your weight in all the way up the very front of the nose, it'll plummet straight down. If you slide your lead head back a little bit, maybe a half, 3/4 of an inch. It'll help your glide of your tube jig, and then you could make it spiral some very large circles down there. That seems to trigger a lot of bites, and it's just two different actions. See what works best every day. We go with both. When it comes to jigs, tube jigs are synonymous for lake trout. Flukes, jerk shads are really big. Spoons are getting really popular. They've been really popular out there. We ice troll a lot, so scoops in our world with a half or 3/4 ounce lead head on a 5-inch tube jig, you really don't need to clean out your holes very much. Everything has a place. You know, if you keep your snowmobile efficient and keep it all put away, you're willing to move more, because all it is hopping on the machine and going. In the back, we got this box from XL Outdoors. You can make one for the back of your machine. It goes right, attach it right to the back. That way you can hold 2 buckets and a couple coolers and some Plano boxes. And then you really don't need a pull sled unless you have it for the shelter. An auger rack, your nebulous, the rod holders in the buckets. Don't forget your Lowrance GPS up front. You keep yourself mobile, keep yourself from spreading stuff all across the ice. You're willing to move a lot more. And then more gear. We got shelters, flip up over versus pop up. Anytime I'm planning on moving on the ice and being mobile, I'm going to use a flip over. If we're going to go camp for the day, maybe set up and just fish for numbers with a shot at a big one, we'll throw some pop-ups up. Get a little more. They're a little more comfortable when you bring the chairs in them, hold more people in each one of them. You know, at our altitude, I put the portable buddy up there. That one works best when you're up here at 8,000 feet and higher in the Rockies. The other buddies, they seem to have some altitude issues. We think it's where the high altitude, the oxygen switch is. Then sonar, if you don't have a sonar and you're coming out lake trout fishing, invest in one. Invest in something. If you have a boat, get yourself a Hook 2 unit. They're very affordable. They have the GPS. You can put your chips in it. That Navionics chip is awesome. You know, if you go with the Navionics Plus regions and you go to sonar charts, you can make your own maps in the summer of all these lakes. They already have good ones out there, but you can improve them a little bit. And if you guys have any questions on the whole Navionics, the mobile app, Kirt Hedquist made a great video. Here is the link. And if you have questions about it also, there's Kurt's email. I'll leave that screen up for a minute so you can write that stuff down, copy it, do whatever you got to do. You know, on GPS, I think they're real important. If you get a map of the lake or just your waypoints or whatever, but it really helps if you have a topo map and you want to go fish a hump. If you're on your machine and you go drive a circle around that hump, you just marked everywhere you want to drill. Then you can get up and drill it. You don't need to turn your GPS on again until you get ready to move to your next hump. I'm a firm believer in that. That works really well for me. I use my snowmobile to mark edges of ridges and edges of flats, tops of humps, sides of humps, anywhere I want to drill up. Makes it just more efficient at the end of the day. I hope all you guys got that Hedquist information. He's actually a genius with this stuff. Don't tell him I said that. You know, I put this bucket on here. It's a great bucket for your snowmobiles and ATVs. It's 1.5 PVC zip ties in a 5-gallon bucket. I cut some notches in the PVC, 4 reels in there, 4 rods and reels. That'll be great. See, we talked about rods, reels. You know, any good 2,500 to 3,000 size reel. I love the Pfluger Presidents. Those are awesome for me. The lines, you just need something with a good drag on the reels. The lines, I just talked about that earlier with a fluorocarbon. And if you go super line in a hut with a heater or a nice day, then you won't have any problem. Now, a lot of guys like to go swivels when they fish with tube jigs, and that's fine on the less pressured lakes, but you bring swivels up here up into the Rockies where you got a lot of people, 200-300 people a weekend on these fish. They see them swivels and they tend to swim away. They'll hit them once in a while. Nothing's foolproof. Everything will work once in a while, but I think you get more bites if you tie direct and you get rid of that swivel. Just plan on changing your leader out more often. That's all. Now, GPS, do it for safety. Always mark your truck. Convenience and efficiency. Heck, if you have the map of a lake, you throw it on there, you're good to go. You can go straight to the structure you want to fish. You can know the depth before you get there. Then all you're doing is hoping there's fish where they're supposed to be. Sometimes they don't know where they're supposed to be, so you got to go find them. They get lost on the humps. You think they're supposed to be on top. They didn't know that. They're down off the side a little bit. At least that way you can find that. There is a thing that I've learned over the past couple of years that I've really been paying attention to. If you are on, say you're on a hump and you find fish on the, we'll say, southeast corner of the hump. Well, the next hump you go to, look on the southeast corner. There very well could be fish there. That just seems to be, that's a one common denominator with lake trout, how strange they are. They seem to follow that a lot. So if you're struggling, try that. So mark your truck or at least a parking area. This was last year at first ice, and whatever this storm was, it was coming down on us pretty quick. We decided to stay out there. And then that was it as it got closer. And that was the snowmobile right before I bailed in the tent, and pretty soon you couldn't see nothing. It was pretty phenomenal. Then, I don't know, 20 minutes later, it was back and sunny again, so I have no idea what that was. Hey, Kurt, I seem to have lost my control. Oh, there we go. There we go. So in Colorado, some of the bigger lake trout lakes, if you're traveling out here, Granby, Williams Fork, Green Mountain, Twin, Blue Mesa, Taylor, Flaming Gorges up in Utah, that's pretty much the holy grail. Be careful if you're going out there. A lot of people get hurt and die out there. Every couple of years you hear of somebody going through the ice and not making it back. You get into the smaller lakes like Chamber, Grand Lake, Jefferson Turquoise, Gross, Big Creek. Those are smaller lakes. They have some huge fish in them. The potential is there. Then it all depends on what the fishing pressure has been and what people have done to the fish that they've caught out of there. Hopefully there's still some big ones left. The smaller lakes are becoming more and more popular. If you look back in here, there's a picture from Lake Granby where my thing is. We call that Abe Lincoln right there. He's laying on his back on the Continental Divide. You can kind of see him. And Granby this year, I don't know, water temperature is 40 degrees right now. It might be froze by Christmas, but I wouldn't count on it. Hopefully by the new year, hopefully we'll get some real cold weather and something will happen. See, use your sonar. Where the fish is where you see them. Last year we caught, over the past few years, we get a lot of large fish just under the ice. If you guys have ever been fishing and see your transducer all of a sudden bobbing in the water pretty aggressively, that's probably a fish hitting it. And you'll be fishing with your kids. This happens in the huts all the time. You'll be fishing with the kids and they'll be playing around over the hole and they'll look at you real serious and go, I just saw a fish. And they probably did. Whenever you see anything coming by, if you're going to take a break, it never hurts. For 10, 15 minutes a day, whatever you're using, reel it up right underneath the ice and just let it sit there. Hold on to it. And that bite will come real light and it'll come real fast. But it's amazing how many fish are swimming up right underneath the ice, and big fish, real big fish. So you also get them on the bottom, you get them in the middle. But without your sonar, you're not going to know half of where these fish are. I would say most of the fish are caught near the bottom. You get into March, though, it's a whole different game. Once the oxygen starts leaving the lake, and it leaves from the deepest parts on the bottom, first, all them fish will come up and suspend, and they suspend over real deep water, say 130, 140 or more feet of water, but they'll only be down 50 or 60 feet. If you have your sonar, you'll see them coming through and you'll know where to fish for them at. When they're doing that, it's a game like Pac-Man. Drop your lure down there and just start reeling it up. See if they're chasing it and hitting it, that's the funnest thing ever. If they're not, you might have to dead stick it right above them, and then they'll come up and hit it. Just pay attention to what they're doing. You know, when you're using it, when you're using your sonar, learn what a big fish versus lots of fish can look like. If you're using a Lowrance, it'll just be a thicker grayscale on the fish. If you're using a flasher, it'll turn into, you'll have one bar, then when he tilts down, you might have 3 or 4 bars, then it'll go to 1, then it'll go to 3, then it'll go to 4. So when that goes on, just pay attention to it. The more you jig, the more you fish with the sonar, the more you'll understand what a big fish looks like. And, you know, if you can end up seeing your jig on your sonar, you're definitely going to be able to see the fish, because the fish, I hope you're not using a jig bigger than the fish. Anyway, that was, there we go. So when I'm out there drilling, punching holes in that lake, I like to drill up the humps, the ridges, the saddles, the flats, anything. I like the thing, it's a room with a view. You get somewhere a hump that has a river channel real near it, deeper water, sit on top of that, right on the edge, and that's where I would drill up first on the hump, and then go and drill up the corners. They're rarely in the middle. A lot of times they're going to be on one of the corners. So drill up to 2 deep water corners. When it comes to ridges, look for the end of the ridge where it dumps off, or look for the humps on top of that, nearest the deeper water, and they can be on the smallest hump. On ridges, it's always a crapshoot which hump they're going to be on, but once you find them there, they're going to be on that a lot. And saddles on the ridges and anywhere, the saddles are very important. Those are places, they're just lake trout highways. If you see a saddle out there and you fish it, you will see fish. And then it'll just be a matter of, are they going to be big or are they going to be little? Flats, just picture a flat as a big hay meadow. There's ditches running across the flats where they irrigated the hay meadow back in the day. Them fish will cruise out there. What's going on out there is the kokanee roam, the kokanee trout, whatever the lake trout are eating, they're out there roaming, chasing down the plankton. The currents are pushing the plankton. So if you can figure out where the plankton's going and get on that, then you're real good. And the big fish are out there cruising it. If I was going to look for just one big fish in a day, I'd spend a lot of time on flats. Just playing cool edges, that is anywhere where you have the depth you think, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 feet dropping off into 100 plus feet of water. Anywhere you get that, you got a really good shot at a big fish. When it comes to slopes, excuse me, I'm going to cough. When it comes to slopes, I like a gentle slope, steep, better than a bluff. But if you're looking at bluffs, that is a real good place. Fish right where the bluff goes to the flat, right where it drops off. You just got to work around and find that the right depth. That's where them lake trout will come and push bait up against the bluff, and they'll annihilate them, but they'll go right to the bottom of it, and that's where they'll rest, and that's where they're very careful. I already went through the whole room with a view with you. You know, when it comes to lures and tactics, spoons, the Fergie spoons, blade spoons, rattling blade spoons, leech flutter spoons, super leech, all of them big spoons, look at it in 2 categories. Look at spoons that are going to go all over the place, and look at just a big old heavy lead thumping spoon. Try them both. A lot of times you never know which one they're going to really be chasing, but you'll do better with one than the other. And then on the swim baits, everybody loves to throw swim baits. If you get a, I should have done a diagram of this too. I'm learning as I go, guys. You get a swim bait and get something like, a big 6-inch jerk shad. And you can put a lead head, maybe a half, go inside up underneath and put a bullet shaped lead head, maybe a 1/2 inch from the nose of that thing, and put the hook through it, glue it up in there so it's real straight. then you start fishing that aggressive, it will dive to the far end of your cone and beyond. That thing will be swimming all over the place, and that is a great way to use a swim bait. Tubes, you know, everybody loves tube jigs. One of the things you can do with tubes, if you're a scent guy, you can either use cotton, and we used to go to the cigarette store and we'd buy a bag of cigarette butts, and the cotton there, we'd be able to drop them in our Ziploc baggies with scent and use our forceps to pull them in and out of the tubes all day long. We could try different scents and we didn't have a big mess on our hands that way. Hair jigs, twister tails. When you're using twister tails, if you're not catching fish and they're coming in to look at them, before you take it off, tear off the twister tail and just use a small piece of meat instead of the twister tail. It's amazing to me how many times that has turned a bite from kind of slow to red hot. Just they did not like the flop of that tail around down there and they started biting, whatever it was. You know, in Colorado, we cannot use live bait. We cannot chum. So you gotta, you know, all your bait has to be frozen, and you can't use game fish as bait. So we're big on suckers. But when it comes to carp, I think carp are just as good as suckers. Shad, a lot of guys like shad. I haven't had that good luck with it, and a lot of people are talking about shrimp, but with the price of shrimp, I'm going to eat it. I'm not going to put it out as bait. Then cutting the bait, you never cut it wider than your jig is wide or longer than the tail. Cut your bait real thin. All you want on it is you want it thin enough so it can flutter, so it can move in the water, and change it a lot. Just keep on trimming it down, change it a lot. Hook it through the meat, then the skin. That's how I do it. You can scale it if you want to. And then you can also, with your meat, you can also soak it in some scents. That's a great scent carrier also. And know your bait. You got to know your bait. This is a kokanee up out here. We slabbed it up out of Wolford this past summer. And we, but you guys, you know, wherever you're at, if you understand what your bait's doing in the winter with lake trout, you're going to have that's half the battle, because all they're going to do is follow the bait. You get a 20, 30-pound lake trout, he has to eat 4, 5, 6 fish a day to keep up his body weight. So if you follow the bait, they're going to be following the bait. So if you can find the bait, you're going to find the fish. You know, the variables out there when you're ice fishing, size matters. Whether it's you're using a 4-inch, a 6-inch, a 10-inch tube, profiles of a tube jig to a jerk shad to a spoon. And this is something, colors is something I found to be very interesting over the past few years. If we are in a spot where I am sure there are fish, but we're not seeing them, I'll start changing colors and profiles. More often than not, they'll start coming into different colors. So keep that in mind. Don't go changing the whole world. Just try changing your favorite jig, changing colors on it to your second or third favorite color. See if you get fish to come in on that. And the big debate is over the past few years is, do you use bait or not to use bait? If you're fishing with your buddy, one of you should use bait and one of you should go without. Let them fish tell you. I'm probably 50-50, bait or not bait, whether you use it. You know, some good techniques, if you're using something and you're reeling it up, just reel it up to the surface, drop it down. If you get a chaser, don't stop. Don't stop reeling it up. There's no bait fish in the world going to stop and look at a lake trout that's about ready to eat it. Just reel it up, and if he's chasing you, reel it faster. Keep on reeling it. Hopefully you'll get the predatory instinct in them to go. They'll hit it. You'll feel the bite and go with it then. And then dead sticking it. Dead sticking works. Dead sticking is absolutely deadly. You got to learn when. You got to watch the mood of the fish on the graph. If he's not if on the reel up thing, I wouldn't dead stick it. If he comes in and it's already dead sticked halfway down, don't move it. Try that. See if he comes up and hits it. We get a lot of hits on that. Dead sticking bait on the bottom is amazing with that bobber technique I was telling you about. Snap jigging. You know, snap jigging will bring them in, and if they won't hit the snap jig and they're coming in, when they come in, slow it down, do something different. Beat up the bottom, just bang that jig right on the bottom, cause as much, try to get a muddy river of current going down there downstream from the jig. That'll call fish in. And if you're using the tube jig and you slide that weight back a little bit, or you got the swim baits and you got that weight back a little bit, then you can swim them big circles with the baits. That'll definitely get some fish attention, because then you're covering a lot of horizontal ground down there, which you normally can't do through the ice. You know, when you're handling a fish, keep the fingers out of the gills. When somebody's fighting the fish, somebody else should get their camera ready. Take some pictures of the fight. Take video of the fish coming out. Once you get the fish up on top, or use gloves to handle the fish. If you notice it there, I just got clam dry skin gloves on there, and I just lipped it. Sit or kneel. If you're sitting, you'll be concentrating on the fish. It's a lot easier, and you won't drop it. Don't hang the fish vertically. It spends its life in a horizontal position. At least give it that respect. The fish ain't breathing. Get it back in the water. Most of you guys know this stuff. It's something I preach about anyway. Now, this fish here we caught, it was a 42 or 43 inch fish. That's an 8-inch hole. Has a 10-inch hoagie in its mouth. And we caught it in less than 30 inches of water. So those fish, when they're up shallow, you picture the rainbows and a lot of your shallow fish that these fish will prey on. You picture them up underneath the ice. These fish will cruise the shoreline, and all of a sudden, if they see a rainbow, them fish are going to run up underneath the ice and wedge themselves in between the shore, the bottom of the lake and the ice, where it gets real shallow and these big fish can't get to them. So when these fish see a bait in the shallow water, if you're fishing it very aggressively, that's what they're used to seeing, and they're going to hit it really hard. This is the one time the lake trout will rip your rod right out of your hand. I encourage everybody to go drill a hole any time of day. This fish here was caught probably 10:30 in the morning, but drill it any time of day in shallow water, spend 15 minutes and move on. Just go eat a sandwich. Fish it real aggressive and move on. You never know when you're going to get a really good one. And shallow water is fun, but it will break your heart, because they will wrap you around rocks and trees and whatever else is up shallow. Lake Trout Mafia, I started this years ago. It's just a thing to say, let the trophies go. Let's preserve these fisheries for our grandkids, great-grandkids, for future generations. Talk to your biologist. Find out what the biggest size group of fish in the lake are, and pick on that group. Like on our lakes out here, 17 and 18-inch lake trout are great for the grill. Give them a shot. Let them big ones go. Handle them carefully. Let's save them for our kids. I think that's all I got. I know it was quick. Hey, there you go. Questions. Now, what kind of reels do I use? Fluger Presidents are great to me. They work really well for me. The best source of lake topo maps in Colorado would be Fish and Map Company. You can get those in most stores around here, but if you have a GPS unit, look at the Navionics chips. Look at everything you can out here. And if you're out here in the West, I'll help you find what you want. So you can give me a holler on my Facebook page, Fishing with Bernie. Any other questions? Oh, how does water clarity play into my fishing? You know, I don't think it plays a lot into, it doesn't play a lot into my fishing, for the fact our lakes are real clear. So what it does do is it shows every error you make. If you have a clean lake, you can see down 15, 20 feet. You have to be very careful on your presentation. You got to make sure your jig's looking right in the water. If you got pretty dirty water, you got a lot of room for error, and them fish aren't going to see it as easy as they would like to. So they're going to make a few more mistakes, which is awesome. I use 10-pound test fluorocarbon. 10-pound test is good for me. You might want to go up to 12. I've never been in a situation where I've needed more than 12, catching, around everywhere. Well, I use 100% trilene, 100% fluorocarbon. But I've never needed more than 12-pound tests, and that's for up to 40-pound Lakers. Let's see. Okay, the bobber technique, one more time. If you get your fishing line and make a loop right on let me go back. Drop your jig to the depth you want it. Get your line right at the top of the water and make a simple loop. Just pinch it together. Then hook your hook right over that bobber, over the two lines, and that'll suspend it there. And you can, then when you set the hook, the line will pop off. If you get a hold of me on this one here and ask me on Facebook, I will do a video on that. I'm going to be out of town for the weekend, but next week I'll put a video up on that bobber technique. Just ask me on my Facebook page. I use tube jigs year-round. Lake trout in the fall, a lot of them, they're spawning. So if you're talking like when water temperature is 50 to 56 degrees, you got to look in the rocks. They're going to be in big rock piles. The big ones are going to be tough to catch. They're thinking about spawning. The little males will be in there eating the eggs, so they'll be very catchable. Use small spoons with that kind of stuff. Use little white jigs. Tip it with sucker meat. You can go out there with your walleye gear that time of year. It can be a lot of fun. You go up into Canada and it gets crazy. It gets absolutely crazy with the big fish chasing top waters and all that stuff, but that doesn't happen so much around here. Any tips catching and releasing big Lakers to prevent them from dying? If it's cold out, you gotta watch their eyes. If it's real cold out and you're using gloves, you cannot hold them fish out for you. You land the fish. You take that picture, you let it go right away. The camera has to be out. If you're using jigs and you have that rod in your hand, when I'm fishing, we only use one rod per person. The rod's always in your hand. So when they set the hook, you most of the time have it right on the hook, right in the top of the mouth. We do use cold snap outdoors or a toothpick for taking out the hooks if they're a little bit deeper, removing the hooks. But then when you hold them in the water, I don't go up and down and plunge them in the water trying to get oxygen. I'll twist my wrists side to side with that fish, and that'll kind of wake them up and they'll kick and go. But I do hold them in the hole until they kick at least once, so then they can swim off. That kind of snaps them to it. See, back on this. How's Granby? Let me get back on this one. Okay, what colors of lures do I like? I like natural colors. I think if you're fishing for a large fish, he's not going to really be too big on the whole pink and orange and the really bright colors. I think he's used to eating something that looks kind of like it should be there. So that's the colors I like. That's just my take. I mean, I know a lot of people who use them wild colors and catch a lot of big fish. Granby, it's currently looking open. It hopefully will have ice by New Year's. I don't know. Keep an eye on my Facebook page. I will do weekly updates on this whole area, Granby, Grand Lake, Shadow Mountain's frozen, Willow Creek's frozen, but I'll do updates on Williams Fork, Granby, and Grand Lake as they start to freeze. Do I reel the fish in slowly to prevent hurting the fish at greater depths? Yes, I do. When I set the hook, I always tell people, set that hook and get that thing hooked and get it cranked up about 5 or 6 cranks fast. What that fish is going to be doing is going to be opening his mouth and looking right at you and shaking his head, trying to get off. Then if you slow down after you get him hooked really well, don't stop reeling, just slow down, let them fight. Then they'll have a chance to burp. And once they burp, then the fight is on. It's a good time. It'll scare you. Hopefully you'll land them. Hopefully you get a picture. Do I usually dead stick and jig at the same time? I will dead stick a jig, but I only use one rod. So we only work one rod. And my feeling for that is if you have 2 rods out there and a big fish comes around, he might not like the commotion of that. You can work that one fish with 1 rod. In my opinion, you'll catch more fish and you'll catch bigger fish. I know on the great days, 2 rods will help you catch more fish and you'll have a funner time of it. But if you really want to learn, try that 1 rod. Now, noise on top of the ice. When we're fishing shallow, I will drill a hole, hand you a rod, show you how to use it with up on top of the ice. You'll drop that jig in the water. I'll be walking over and drilling the second hole and you'll be hooked up. So noise on top of the ice, I don't think they care. We have had so many fish come in and bite when snowmobiles pull up to us. The slow day will, all of a sudden, snowmobiles will come by us and you'll get bit. So I think they almost like the noise on top of the ice. I wouldn't swear to it, but I think it is. Let's see. Thanks for the kind words, Brian. Let's see. With a 1 rod philosophy, how far do you fish from a partner? You know, you want to fish close enough to have fun. You want to fish, but you don't want to be competing for the same fish. I'd say if you're out there ice trolling, fish 15, 20 feet apart, 30 feet apart. You know, just spread out and keep moving. If you're out there catching numbers and you just want to catch as many fish, I'll just jump all over it and use fish as close as you fish pretty close together. It's just if you're fishing big fish, I believe in spreading apart. That way you're not competing for the same fish and you guys will each get your shots. What leader do I use and how long? I use 100% straight fluorocarbon the whole way. I don't use a leader. If I get line twist, I will drop my jig to the bottom, pull off 4 or 5 more feet off my rod tip, cut the line, wrap the line up, stick it in my pocket, and retime my jig. I just replaced 40 feet of line or 50 feet of line, whatever the case is, and I got a great fresh start on new line. It's a great way to go. Always seems to keep me in fresh line. You got to replace your line anyway, and this way when it gets down to half a spool, you can change it. I have used an underwater camera for ice fishing for Lakers. I've just straight up caught less fish when it's been on, and so I don't use it anymore. I just gave up on them altogether. I'd like to get back into it and get some videos of stuff, but it's pretty tough knowing you can catch more fish without the camera. And guys, this is all my opinion. Evan, you got to get out there and ice fish. That's something you just got to do. Is ice fishing more productive than open water fishing? It sure can be. And the reason is because you are stationed. You are the perfect flat platform. Say that 3 times. But you're fishing just perfectly flat. You're just that platform. Your presentation is absolutely perfect. And all you got to be is around fish that are willing and you can catch them. Whereas if your boat, you have boat control, you have wind, you have all that other stuff changing around. Ice fishing is just you and the bottom. Nothing. If the bottom does change, you got an issue. And then Dan, are you using specific ice fishing fluorocarbon or just regular fluorocarbon? Is there a difference? I'm using regular trilene 100% fluorocarbon. The ice fishing fluorocarbon is different. It's a little more subtle in the water, and it's a little more abrasive resistant on the ice. But I haven't broke off, but very, very seldom because of the ice on the edge. And I buy 2,000 yard spools of it, and it just lasts me year round. I've been doing this since before they came out with all the fancy ice fishing lines. And so what I use in the summer is what I use all the time. With the rod, okay. Hey, thanks, Donald. I appreciate it. I think that's all of our questions. Is there any more? I hope I answered you guys' questions. If you have any more, reach out to me on my Fishing with Bernie Facebook page. I'm all about it, and I'll make sure to get everything answered. What pound fluoro do I use? I use 10-pound fluoro straight to all the way up to the reel. That's what my reel's spooled with. Thanks, Jennifer. That was really nice of you to say. I'm not, but hey, we'll pretend I am. Favorite brand for tubes? Big fan of the Berkeley Havoc tubes. Canyon Plastic makes a great tube. They got a lot of variety on sizes. The Berkeley Havoc tubes, they just got a good diameter to them. There's something different about them. They have the multicolored tails that just seems to really work for me. So I'd have to say first is Berkeley Havoc. Second would be probably Canyon Plastics. I think, are we getting done there? Oh, there's something. Does a cold snap slow down the lake trout fishing? You know what's really amazing is, that's a great question. This drives me absolutely nuts. When a cold front is coming in and your walleye fishing would be off the charts, lake trout don't seem to care. The second day, when we get the bluebird really cold day, I've had some pretty good days. So go figure that out. And high winds affect, I don't know, what did that cost for you to say, Kurt? I'm not sure what that means. Well, we're gonna go with it. Hey, on the high winds, I believe that affects you more than the fish, because when you're in there, everything's just beating down on you, and if you're not in the hut, it's even a little more tougher. But we've had some great days in the wind. We've had some terrible days in the wind. I think it's a matter, one thing you got to always remember, especially with lake trout, with every fish, they have to eat so many calories a day to keep their body shape up. And without eating them, something's gonna go wrong in their life. So they're gonna eat no matter what. It's just a matter of where they're eating. That's what you got to pay attention to. Because if you're fishing on the bottom and then fish are cruising right underneath the ice, you're not going to have that good of a day. If you're fishing shallow and they're deep, well, there you go again. So keep moving, even on the windy days. Keep moving and find them fish that'll eat. There's always a group of fish out there that'll eat. Any more? Well, thanks for all the kind words, you guys. If there's no more questions, I think I answered them all. Kurt. Looking over here.
I believe he got to them all. I don't see any more. So the Q&A.
Yep. Oh, how do I decide on where to start my day? When I'm on the lake, as much as I do, I look around on somewhere that hasn't been fished the past couple of days, and that's where I'll start my day. And then I move. I don't like to fish anywhere somebody's already fished there today or yesterday. So I move around according to that. But I really like to start my day on either flats or a hump. Those are my two starting points all the time. And it all depends on the pressure that I've seen out there over the past couple of days. But if you start on a flat, you can't go wrong. There's fish out there somewhere. You just got to find them. And you can spend all day long on a flat, and it'll probably pay off. Man, these are some awesome questions. I'm loving this. I want to do this again. So what do you think there, Mr. Kurt?
Let's give it a couple more minutes here. If anything pops up.
You did not have to take the control of this one at all. You're proud of me, huh?
I am. I
rather shocked you.
I didn't have to hit the emergency mute button.
All right, is there anybody out there? Oh, let me get that out there here. What's that say?
We got two more in the Q&A.
On the Q, you mentioned the type of reel. the Fluger Presidents, those are awesome for me. They're inexpensive. They're a very good durable reel. You can beat them up. They last a few winters for me, and that's with my abuse. And what scent do I find the most effective? Well, the Berkeley Power Bait trout scents work for me really well. I wouldn't shove a frozen fathead minnow in a tube. I would hook it on the outside of the tube so they could see the minnow. Them colors to me seem to make a big difference to them. I wouldn't hide the minnow from them at all. I like mornings or evening better. I like mornings better. The fish supposedly don't feed at night, so they wake up hungry. But there's always, consider it a major bite in the morning and a minor in the evening. So if you can get, if you're near a lake and you're camping, you're in a hotel or something, run in and eat something at 2 or whatever, and then get back out for the evening. Even if it's not a very fast bite, you get a beautiful sunset. I like this thing where I don't have to type all these answers in. This is nice. I'm not a fast typer. We'd be here all night to answer these. I'd be on the first one going, T-R-I. So there's this old, oh, what's this? Well, yeah, Chris, go learn that bobber technique. It's really cool. It's really cool for kids also. Really cool for kids. But if you don't understand it, send me a message on Facebook. I'll do a video of it. I'll do it next week when I get back. Thanks, Jacob. Be safe. Keep the ice safe. Do I run the hook through the meat and out the skin of a piece of sucker? Yes, I do. How big of a piece? No wider than the tube, no longer than the tail, or no wider than the piece of plastic, no longer than the tail. You want to accessorize the jig. You don't want to take it over. You don't want to stop the action of the piece of plastic. So there's this, oh, what's this? Hey, thanks, Andrew. Merry Christmas to you guys. Be safe up there. There's this old guy. He's talking to his wife one day, and he tells his wife, he goes, honey, I don't care what they say. I'm taking it with me. And she goes, how are you going to do that? She goes, you don't worry about it. I want you to take all of our money, take it all out of the banks and put it in a box and put it upstairs. I'm taking it with me. I'm proving them all wrong. So she does what she's asked to do. And a few years later, he passes on, and then she's upstairs cleaning out the attic, and she finds this big box of money. And she looks at it and goes, I knew we should have put it in the basement. Did you move me on that one, Kurt?
No, I didn't. I think everybody's laughing too much.
I thought it was funny. Oh, you didn't like my joke? I'm not going to do this without one joke, darn it. Hey guys, if you have any Navionics questions, go ahead and ask me on my Fishing with Bernie page. I'll hook you up with the answers. If I don't know the answers, I'll definitely put you in touch with Kurt or something like that. Any questions at all, Fishing with Bernie Facebook page or www.fishingwithbernie.com. You can reach me through there. Have you had much luck using a jaw jacker for dead sticking? Ryan, I'm not really a big fan of the jaw jacker because if you're laying something down, a lot of times then fish will come in and they pick up the bait. So that means it's just slack line. You're going to catch some fish with it, but I'm a one rod guy. I believe you'll catch a lot more fish using one rod. You'll definitely catch bigger fish using one rod. and learning. Thanks for the kind words, Ryan, and you stay safe this winter also. Merry Christmas to you. So is there any more questions here? Because we're about to sign off.